Dictators cancel elections, not democracy. Dictators. 5.5 million voters in southern England are being denied the right to pass judgment on the performance of their councillors over the last 4 years.
The Conservatives were the ones that started the ULEZ scheme and put us on this track, but both Labour and the Conservatives now need to really reflect on that and come up with a scheme, because this isn't just about London, this is coming to towns and cities across the whole of the United Kingdom.
Where's the will? Where there's a will, there's a way, right? But this constant failure to grasp the illegal migration issue is leading to more and more questions and less answers from our government. Disturbingly, all of this news comes at a time when Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is seriously considering scrapping voter ID rules and potentially exploring granting voting rights to foreign nationals. This raises even more extremely uncomfortable questions for our government, doesn't it? And of course, Elon Musk has gone as far to suggest that Keir Starmer is importing voters, but I possibly...
Angela Rayner is in serious trouble. Just minutes ago, she was dragged into court over allegations of abusing her power to rig elections and block Reform UK. Accused of manipulating the system to keep her party in control, this scandal could shake British politics to its core. Is this the beginning of the end for Rayner? Let's break it all down.
The Conservatives were the ones that started the ULEZ scheme and put us on this track, but both Labour and the Conservatives now need to really reflect on that and come up with a scheme, because this isn't just about London, this is coming to towns and cities across the whole of the United Kingdom.
What began as a calculated attempt to control the political landscape has exploded into a full-blown scandal, one so massive that even her own party is feeling the pressure. The public is waking up, the media is struggling to contain the fallout, and Labour's once confident deputy leader is now backed into a corner by her own decisions. And just when it seems like it can't get any worse, it absolutely does.
When we left the European Union, people were promised more money into the NHS, your living standards will be better, and the opposite has happened. So I know people are impatient for change, but I also know that people will give us that opportunity and will judge us, and that's why Keir set out the clear guidelines and what people should expect we will deliver. What we inherited was a bad situation.
But
that's
this
not
is
an
about
excuse.
what's happened.
Imagine this. Your party is sinking in the polls, Reform UK is surging, and a crushing defeat is just around the corner. So, what's the move? If you're Angela Rayner, you don't fight it, you cancel the elections. That's exactly what happened. Rather than risk losing thousands of council seats in a political landslide, Rayner and her allies chose to hit the pause button on local elections. Their official reason? Council restructuring.
But this poll is interesting. It's over 5,700 people polled for PLMR, the PR company, and Electoral Calculus. It's an MRP mega poll, we call it. Reform to gain 170 seats, and at the expense of both the Tories and Labour, although Tories do gain 50 or so seats. But it means that the next election, were this to happen tomorrow, would be a three-way tie. Very unusual in our country to have a three-way tie between three parties. It would give Nigel Farage that balance of power, allowing him to work out who wants to do a deal with, probably the Tory party, given the party's policies.
The official story claims that local authorities in Essex, Norfolk, Suffolk, Sussex and Hampshire needed more time to finalise their governance structures before elections could take place, but the public wasn't buying it. Because here's the real question: if restructuring was such a pressing issue, why is it only being raised now, right as Labour's poll numbers are crashing?
So quickly, this is why people don't like politicians, because she said that Nigel Farage said you want to privatise the NHS. He did nothing of the sort. What he offered was a different system. Now, obviously, I'm not here to advocate for Nigel, but it's clear if we're not going to have a realistic, accurate conversation, then people will just turn off. The other thing to say about the NHS, I think we need to remove the politics. We give the NHS £180 billion plus. If the villain of the piece is always as politicians, it will never get sorted. We need to give that money to the professionals and let them take charge
no accountability.
and responsibility.
There's no accountability. You know, and I don't mind saying this. I mean, I've given the NHS a really good go recently for the last year and a bit. I was just trying to get an issue dealt with. Over the course of that, I've had 3 different diagnoses. They've lost my scans and an ultrasound twice, actually. And in the end, I was like, look, I want to get this sorted, as most people would. A year and a bit I was waiting there.
The timing couldn't have been worse for Rayner. The public saw right through it. This wasn't about governance or administration, it was pure damage control. Labour knew that if these elections went ahead, they were staring down a brutal defeat, with Reform UK surging and a Conservative base far more energised than they had anticipated. Nigel Farage didn't mince words. He exposed the scheme for what it was, a desperate, undemocratic attempt to cling to power. He slammed Rayner and her allies for trying to rewrite the rules to protect themselves, warning that if Labour got away with it, it would set a dangerous precedent. Because if a party can simply postpone elections when the odds aren't in their favour, what's stopping them from doing it again?
Funding, training and equipping Tunisian and Libyan coast guards to stop the boats before they even set sail. And let's not forget, Italy is managing the Mediterranean Sea, a body of water so vast it makes our English Channel look like a puddle. But let's turn back to the UK, shall we? That short stretch between Dover and Calais, well, more migrants crossed into Britain than Italy, with over 67,500 of them. And that's after we threw 500 million at the French border force to supposedly keep us safe. And for what? More crossings, more chaos.
And here's where things go from bad to worse. If election meddling wasn't enough, Rayner has been doubling down on a massive housing expansion plan, one she claims is the solution to the UK's housing crisis. But there's more to this agenda than she's letting on.
We're determined to change the planning regulations, to invest more into affordable homes programme and to deliver the housing we desperately need. Keir Starmer last week as Prime Minister was very clear and levelling with the public. We said we'd build these homes. It's going to take us a lot of change to deliver that, and I think Ben touched on it. There are things we have to do in order to stop these developments being stuck in the system, and we're determined to deliver that.
She's positioned herself as a champion of affordable housing, vowing to build thousands of new homes to help struggling families get on the property ladder. Sounds great, right? Except there's just one problem. Those homes aren't meant for British citizens.
This deterrence is staggering, with an estimated 11 million undocumented migrants and asylum seekers in the US. It's going to be a big job, but I think there's only one man for it. Where's the will? Where there's a will, there's a way, right? But this constant failure to grasp the illegal migration issue is leading to more and more questions and less answers from our government. Disturbingly, all of this news comes at a time when Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is seriously considering scrapping voter ID rules and potentially exploring granting voting rights to foreign.
Rumours began swirling that these new housing projects weren't designed for struggling British families at all. Instead, leaked documents and insider reports suggest Labour's real priority, fast-tracking homes for illegal immigrants, while hard-working taxpayers are left behind.
The chair of the Red Wall caucus of Labour MPs, around 40 of those, and they think they are worried about a southern bias in some of the spending choices made by Rachel Reeves, and what they want to see is a Red Wall MP in the cabinet. Here's what she told me on Choppers.
But so do you want to have a voice in the cabinet?
Oh my God.
Not you personally, just a Red Wall.
Well, Red Wall voice.
I have to support you in the cabinet.
No.
A Red Wall voice, more of a northern voice. I mean,
yes, I do. I most definitely do. If and when there's a reshuffle, yes, I'd be loudly cheering for a strong voice from.
But the budget I felt was quite southern focused. Or the announcements, from Rachel Reeves last week, Oxbridge rail line.
She went for the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, but she didn't really. I think the north was a bit ignored. I think.
I agree.
You're nodding. Yeah,
I agree. And there was a level of anger from my Red Wall colleagues.
This wasn't just speculation. Policy documents confirmed that a significant portion of the new housing units were being allocated for asylum seekers and newly arrived migrants. The official justification? That Britain had a moral duty to provide safe housing for those in need. But the public wasn't buying it. Farage didn't hold back. He called out the policy for what it really was, a strategic attempt to reshape the UK's voting base. Because if Labour could secure housing, services and eventually voting rights for thousands of new arrivals, one thing was certain: guess who they'd be voting for in the next general election? Exactly.
To begin with, it is a pleasure to have another exchange with the Right Honourable Lady in this House, our 5th in 12 months. Any more of these and she'll be claiming it as her principal residence. On the issue of no-fault evictions, it may have escaped the Right Honourable Lady's attention, but we will be voting on exactly that matter later today. The Conservative government taking action.
The backlash was swift and intense. Homeowners and working-class families, the very people Labour claimed to stand for, were outraged. They had spent years struggling to afford homes, watching prices soar and rents spiral out of reach. And now they were being told that the government's top priority wasn't them, but providing free housing for people who had just arrived. And just when Rayner thought she could contain the fallout, another scandal erupted. As if the situation wasn't already dire, her past has come back to haunt her. Reports have surfaced that in 2015, she pocketed 100,000 from selling a council house, a property that was supposedly her primary residence. The problem? It wasn't her primary residence, making the sale highly questionable. And that's exactly why Jeremy Hunt called her out on it during PMQs, turning up the heat on a scandal that just won't go away. She allegedly misrepresented the home's status, allowing her to avoid paying the proper taxes on the sale. In other words, that's fraud. So while she preaches about honesty and fairness, it turns out she may have been dodging taxes all along. Calls for an investigation are growing louder by the day. Legal experts suggest that if these allegations hold up, Rayner could be in serious trouble. At best, it's a political catastrophe that shatters her credibility. At worst, it could lead to criminal charges. And the most damning part? She's staying silent. Labour's media allies are scrambling to bury the story, redirecting attention elsewhere. But the internet isn't letting it slide. Every day, more people are asking the same question. Why is the deputy leader of the Labour Party, a politician who built her career on social justice, anti-Islamophobia and fairness, suddenly avoiding transparency when it comes to her own finances?
My department is at the heart of the government's work to restore order and unity in all of our communities following the appalling disturbances we saw. And whilst we continue to make sure criminals are brought to swift justice, this vital work to strengthen the bond between government and communities, including our Muslim communities and those from many other faiths and backgrounds, is central to this government's mission to bring the whole country together.
Lee Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the Secretary of State please explain to me and the House what the government's definition of Islamophobia actually is? So state.
Well, I say to the honourable member that a new definition must be given careful consideration so that it comprehensively reflects multiple perspectives and considers potential implications for different communities. And we're actively considering our approach to Islamophobia, including definitions, and we'll provide further updates on this in due course.
The walls are closing in fast, and even Labour insiders can see it. MPs who once defended Rayner are now avoiding any mention of her. Some are quietly distancing themselves, hoping to escape the fallout, while others are beginning to suggest, ever so subtly, that maybe it's time for a new deputy leader. Behind closed doors, Labour is in full damage control mode, but they're running out of excuses. The public is furious, the opposition is seizing the moment, and every attempt to contain the fallout only makes things worse. Rayner's scandals aren't just about her. They embody everything the British public is fed up with: dishonest politicians, a rigged system, and policies that prioritise outsiders over their own citizens. Labour wanted to dodge an electoral disaster, but instead they've walked straight into an even bigger one. And if you think this is the end of it, think again. This is where things get really interesting. Will Rayner dig in and fight for her position, or will her own party push her out? Will the fraud allegations lead to real legal consequences, or will she find a way to slip through the cracks? And most importantly, how much longer can Labour keep pretending this isn't a complete disaster?
We do not think that elections being cancelled is the right thing 4 years on from a Conservative landslide. The two parties have colluded so that people can keep paid jobs for another couple of years. It's wrong at every level. What we do know is that the reorganisation of local government is going to take up to 3 years to complete. And given that a term for a county councillor is 4 years, there is absolutely no justification for cancelling the elections of 5.5 million people other than the cowardice of the existing political class. And that's why we've launched our petition on this, which nearly 250,000 people have signed already. We are blooming angry. This is wrong. The political weather has changed in local government over the course of the last 4 years, and people deserve to have a say.
The cracks are showing, the excuses are running out, and Angela Rayner's career is hanging by a thread. What do you think about the local election cancellations? Let us know in the comments. And before you go, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more updates.